Hi friends, today I'm going to show you exactly how to pressure can green beans step by step. Last night we picked a big batch from the garden and it's time to get them in the jars. Good morning. I am still working on cup number 2 of coffee today, and it is 7:45 in the morning and it's supposed to get hot today. It is September 4th and I want to get those beans canned that I picked yesterday. And I also have a very full work day, so I want to get the canning done first. We did not get as many canned beans last year as we'd hoped. We had picked pretty much all of our beans, which was the best crop ever, and we had like bowls and bowls and bowls on the counter, and that was that would have been a year ago next week. So it was right around September 10th of 2024 that we had picked all these beans last year. And then that's when poor little Cooper had his disc rupture, and we ended up going to Prince Edward Island, and he had emergency back surgery, and I didn't know if he was going to make it or not. So crazy times. We were there over a week, and guess what? By the time we got back, all those beans, we lost them all. But our little doggy was like, he was going to be okay, and so that was more important. But I want to get all these beans canned in case of any crazy emergencies that happen in life that you're not prepared for. So now I just do it. I do it. I try not to put anything off. So I have my jars. I just went downstairs and grabbed some jars. I'm using half pints. That's a good size for Brian and I. And also I want to give some to his mom. Her garden wasn't the greatest this year. We've all been struggling with the drought. And then I have some more half pints. Are these wide mouth? Yes, they are. In a brand new case. So I'm going to pop these in my dishwasher, and I'm going to do a quick cycle, and then I will proceed with pressure canning and go back to my coffee in the meantime. I've put 3 inches of water and 2 tablespoons of vinegar in my pressure canner just to get it ready. First thing you want to do is clean your beans. So I'm just making sure my sink is clean. Let's get these ones cleaned up, and they are pretty clean as they are, but you know, you want to make sure they're really clean. You don't want any debris or dirt, and you definitely don't want anything with little legs or wings or anything. That's just gross. So I'm gonna give them a good wash. Okay, let's get some space. Move my zucchini chocolate chip muffins, the zucchini I made last night, which is going to have to be moved because that's where the jars are going. Move my little dishes. I love using my china, by the way. That's lavender rose that my parents helped me get when I was a kid growing up. My dad worked at Home Hardware, and he was the manager and got discounts. So when I was 9, I'm going on a tangent. But by the way, I go on tangents. So heads up if you're going to follow me on this channel. Squirrel, right? That kind of thing. Anyways, when I was about 9, I remember my dad taking me into the hardware store, and that's when they carried Royal Albert. And he had me pick a pattern, and I picked lavender rose. And all these years later, that is still my very favorite pattern. And my parents worked so hard for me to get my china set that to this day, I want to make sure that I use it, and I do. All right, so enough of that. I'm going to get these beans ready, and all I'm going to do, start with this big one, is, the end's not even on that, and I'm going to need my glasses on, but, these all look pretty good. There's not even like much of a tip, but I'm going to take any tips off like that, put them aside. Some people break off the end. There's nothing wrong with the end. In my opinion, I think that's just a personal preference. But I'm just going to take those little stem bits off. And these are stringless. And yes, I made sure they were when I bought my seeds. By the way, I use West Coast seeds from British Columbia. So every time I go home to Comox, I buy a whack of seeds. And I'm also starting to save my seeds more and more every year for my garden. But they are I just have the best luck with West Coast seeds. Yeah, they're just amazing. Anyways, I'm going to get another bowl and continue on with this. Okay, I have to eat one. Oh my goodness. So good. So there's a bowl for the bits that are going in there, and the bowl that I'm going to break them into. And I will say, I'll just show you. I have my pressure canner on low. I'm actually going to turn this up a little bit so it can start to simmer. There's 3 inches or so of water in there. I like to make sure that when my jars go in, that the water comes up at least an inch up the jar. So that's just me. And then also I have all my jars already in the oven. They were in the dishwasher. I ran them through the quick cycle this morning to make sure that they were clean, because I keep them downstairs in our pantry, and sometimes, you know, you can get dust, especially since we have a wood stove that we use every year. So once they came out of the dishwasher, I just put them in that oven, and then 225 to keep them hot. So I'm just going to put the lid on this pressure cooker. Make sure the valve is open, which it is now. Okay. Found my glasses. So, see this? See this little stem? That's what I'm going to just break off. And I'm just going to start snapping these about 1-inch pieces and put them in my bowl. Oh, look, that one's got a string, so I'm just going to peel that. And a couple years ago, I made some pickled beans, like hot dilly beans, like for Caesars or just to munch on. Yeah, my oven's hot. That's what that beeping is. And I love to entertain, and you know, even just meats and crackers and pickles and relishes, things like that. And I had an event with a whole whack of my girlfriends in New Brunswick. Maybe it was this past June. No, was it last June? Must have been last June. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, it was last spring. My gosh, where does time go? I don't even know. Anyways, oh my gosh. They went crazy over these hot dilly beans. So I have to find that recipe. Pretty positive I know where it is. And I'm going to make more of those this year as well. And I'm just checking my beans for any marks, by the way, because I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not using it. So anyways, my beans, I mean, they just look sensational. Anyways, I'm going to be making more of those beans, and I took a bunch home to share with my dad and family on Vancouver Island. Same thing, huge hit. And I think I only ended up getting 1 jar for myself. And so it's been downstairs. I've been saving it until I end up making more. So some of the beans that are on the vines, still growing on the plants, I'm letting them grow because I want them to be at least this long. I want them to be several inches long. I don't break those ones when I can those. So I'm excited about that. I was a little overwhelmed when I went out to the garden last night and seen all the beans. And I know so many other people have like rows and rows and rows of beans. I love watching Ruth on Homesteading with the Zimmermans, and I know a lot of you watch her too. She's so fabulous, and her garden is so gorgeous, and all her flowers. But of course, she has a huge family, and when I see the amount of beans or different vegetables that come out of their garden, I'm like, holy Hannah, that's a lot of produce. But for just my husband and I, what we grow is more than plenty. Would have been more, if the weather cooperated. But you know, I'm going to count my blessings because there are fires happening here in Nova Scotia, and it's really, really scary, really, really sad. There's been so many fires all over the place this year. There's just something a little bit weird with that, so I'm not using it. You want the best of the best. You want the beans that are going in your jars to be perfect. And they are. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So the amount of beans that we have in our garden this year are more than enough to last us until next year when we grow them and harvest them. Plus, we usually share our produce. Like, I'll give some to my best friend. I'll give some to my mother-in-law. We have a couple of neighbors behind us. Where we live out in the country, and there are there's 4 homes up here at the end of our country lane. And behind these homes, we have woods that take you down to the river. And when you come up our lane, there's our house, and beside us is our friend with her 2 kids. And then behind her is our friend who comes and he watches our pets for us when we go away. And then beside him is our other friend and his son. And we're just such a tight little tribe up here. It is so cool. You know, when there's no fire bans, we all get together and have our bonfires and our hot dogs, and the kids will have their marshmallows, or Brian will make his ice cream cake, which the kids go crazy for. And well, we all do because it's really good. Or just us adults will get together and we'll have some drinks. In the winter time, we play a lot of games like Farkle and Mexican Train, and there's a couple of other ones. I can't remember. But anyhow, you know, and it's lovely. We help each other in the winter when there's, you know, crap load of snow. Brian's got the snow plow, and he'll plow our lane and the driveways, and he'll go across the street and do our friend's house across the street from us. It's just really, really great. And we have wonderful friends in the area who we get our beef from and our turkeys from. And it's just great. I have to say, as much as I love Vancouver Island, and every time I go home, like, I do get very homesick for Vancouver Island, especially just to go and have a coffee with my dad, or go hang out with our tribe at our favorite pub, which happens to be the Griffin Pub. And just the mountains and the trees and everything. Like, I am so in my skin when I'm at home, and it seems like every time when I leave now to fly back to Nova Scotia, I cry harder on the plane when I leave. I just, especially overlooking, like, as we're flying and we see all that, it's a paradise. You see all those beautiful islands and the lushness, and just leaving home, I just find it's getting harder and harder for me to leave, to come back to our home here in Nova Scotia. So my heart is definitely in both places, and I'm sure some of you can probably relate to that. You know, plus, you know, my family's getting older, so I want to be there for them. So I've been flying out, you know, 2-3 times a year. So it's really hard. And then there's the whole cost of housing. I don't know if that's a blonde hair or I think it's just a string from one of the beans. I lost my train of thought with that. Anyways, I was just going to say that, oh yeah, my heart is in both places. And I'm torn too because, well, first of all, yeah, that's what I was going to say. The cost of housing here on the East Coast, I think anywhere compared to buying a home on the West Coast, I mean, houses are so outrageously expensive on the West Coast. Plus, Vancouver Island is growing. Now, this one I'm just going to show you. That one's a little bit tough, a little bit past its point, so I'm not going to put that in with my other beans. Um, anyways, so cost of housing is insane out there. And we have a beautiful home out here with a couple of acres. And I just explained to you a little bit about, how we're out in the country and have these wonderful neighbors. But I also love the East Coast vibe. Oh my gosh, there's something about the East Coast vibe here in the Maritimes when I lived in New Brunswick and, here in Nova Scotia. And I actually have East Coast blood in my veins, blue nose blood in my veins. My dad's side is all from, my grandma and grandpa Zink are both from Nova Scotia. Grandma was born and raised in Dartmouth, and my grandpa and my dad, they're all from the Lunenburg area. And then grandpa was in the service, and then that's what got them out eventually to Vancouver Island. And it's so funny because growing up, I'd hear grandma and grandpa's Nova Scotia accents, and grandma would make her cod cakes and, boiled dinner and things like that. And, there was the Nova Scotia decor with the blue nose, because we had I think it was my great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather, I can't remember now, was first mate or something on the blue nose. But so there's pictures of the blue nose and little, lobster trap decor, whatever. And, it was wonderful. And I had no idea I'd end up living on the East Coast. So it's weird how life happens and how life changes. So I've been out here now since 2007, which is crazy. I was only going to stay on the East Coast for 3 years. And here I am. But you got to bloom where you're planted, as they say, and everything happens for a reason in life. Here's another one past its prime. And I'm very lucky and very blessed. And I have the most incredible friends here on the East Coast, because I originally started off in New Brunswick and was there for about 8-9 years before I moved to Nova Scotia. So I have quite a tribe of friends who are near and dear to my heart in New Brunswick. See, these ones are they're a little bit, they'll be chewy. You don't want those in there. Anyways, same thing, a little bit past its point. I'm going to save those ones for the seeds. So I just thought I'd share a little bit with you guys today. A little bit of a chatty Cathy today. Thought I'd, share a little bit more about me and about my life. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. I'll put a timestamp down below so you can skip past my rambling and just get to the actual canning process. But if you feel like just listening and learning a bit about me and my little stories, there you go. So on that note, I will zip it, and I'm going to put some music on. I don't know. I've been fluctuating on the music today between country classics right up to the 80s, and everything from George and Tammy to AC/DC. I tell you, I've been all over the map today. Oh my gosh. Anyhow, I'm gonna come back and show you what to do once all your beans are ready. Okay, so today turned into one of those days that got a lot busier than I anticipated, and it is now 20 to 6. So I had to shut everything down because I got busy with work and some other things, and I am just getting back to my beans now. So let's finish up. So I will say, when you are canning, whether you're water bathing or pressure canning, you really need to give it your full attention, because it's really important that you don't leave things on the stove too long, and you want to make sure you're timing things properly, especially with pressure canning, which is one of the reasons why, because I got so busy today, I just turned off my pressure canner, turned off my oven. So my oven's been back on, my jars are hot again, and I just put the oven on at 225, and my pressure canner, the water is starting to simmer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the jars, and I'm going to start filling them up with the beans. Oh, and I'm going to boil some water, because we need to have hot water to pour on the beans, and I'm going to grab my pink Himalayan salt. I have my pink Himalayan salt, and you can use sea salt. You just want to make sure that there's no additives in your salt. You don't want to use just regular table salt. That will not work. And I have my teaspoon. Now this is a teaspoon. I only need half a teaspoon because I'm doing pints instead of quarts. Half a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon. These are the beans that I decided not to can because they were just a little bit too, you can feel they're like rubbery. And if you go to snap them, they don't snap real well. But I am going to save these seeds and plant them in my garden next year. So we'll leave that for now. Let's get to these babies. So now that all of my fresh tender beans are washed and snapped, I'm putting them into the jars. Now lots of times I will put my beans in the jars whole, but for right now in this particular video, I'm showing you with the beans snapped to 1-inch pieces. And you do want to make sure your jars are warm, or even hot. Mine are hot. And your lids and rings, everything is ready and warm before filling to help prevent breakage. Now, because green beans are low acid, pressure canning is the only safe method. So always follow tested times and pressure for your altitude. There are other ways that you can can your produce. I'm also part of a Canning Rebels group. You can dry can your beans. There's all different ways you could do them. But in this video, I'm following the USDA standards, the safe standards for doing up your green beans. Now I've added my half a teaspoon of Himalayan salt to each one of my pint jars, and I'm just packing these jars in as tight as I can with the green beans. If you don't pack them in real tight after they're pressure canned, they will float a little bit, so you'll have a little bit of a gap in the bottom of the jar, and that's okay, but I want to get as many beans as I can into each jar. Once you've got your jars filled with your beans and your salt, top them up with hot boiling water, and you want to keep 1-inch headspace. And once your jars are filled with water, it's really important to get the air bubbles out. So I'm just using an orange peeler. You can use a chopstick. I can't find my debubbler tool, so that's what I'm using. And did you see what I just did there, guys? Yeah, I decided because the water is boiling hot and I wanted to push those beans underneath that water, because as you debubble and the beans shift around, you might need to add a few more beans. You might need to add a little bit of water to bring it back up so it's 1-inch headspace. And I actually found just by taking my glass and lightly pressing down, I'm not mushing up my beans, I'm just lightly pressing down, and that worked really well. So I'd never done that before, but it worked really good. So next, I'm just wiping my rims and adding my lids and my rings, which are finger tight. So you just want to turn them until there's no resistance. You don't want to crank them on super tight. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that to the rest of my jars, and then they're ready to go into the pressure canner. And if you are new to canning, don't be intimidated. Once you've done it a couple of times, it really does become second nature. I used to only water bath the things that could be safely water bathed. So it's only been the last few years that I've been pressure canning, and now I am hooked. And I'll pressure can soups and stews, and there's so many things I'm pressure canning, and I just love it. I poured a little bit more water into my pressure canner because while it was simmering, some of that water did evaporate. So I wanted to make sure it was at the 3 inches of water, and you can see here I just put the rack in so I could add more jars. So because I wanted to fill up my canner, I scooted out to the garden and picked enough beans to fill up 3 more jars so that I could have a full canner of beans. I'm just locking my lid. This is a T-fal pressure canner. Just making sure it's locked, making sure the valve is open, and I'm turning up the heat. Okay, the vegetables are in the jars. They're in the pot. It is 7 p.m. because I did stop to go get some more green beans from the garden. So yeah, I'm pretty happy I got these done. And in a few days, it'll be time to pick more green beans, and I'm going to can them, and we're probably going to start digging up more of the Yukon Golds because they are definitely ready, and we're going to do some more green beans and potatoes, but I do want to get my dilly pickled spicy beans done because they're excellent. Now I'm just going to wait for my pot to come up to pressure to start steaming, and I'm going to let it steam for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes I'm going to turn the dial and let it come up to pressure to 11 pounds for my altitude, and then I'm going to start timing for 20 minutes. Maybe it's time I eat some dinner. Alexa, set the timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now.
All right, so it has been 20 minutes since it has been pressure cooking. So that was after the first 10 minutes where it was steaming, and then turn the dial and let it come up to 11 pounds. I kind of go between 10 and 11 pounds a little bit, but for the most part 11 pounds. And now I've just turned off the oven, or sorry, turned off the stove, and I'm just going to let my pot do the natural pressure release, and then I'm going to let it sit for another 5 minutes. So once it goes down to 0 on the dial, I'm going to let it sit for another 5 minutes, and then I can take my jars out. And that's it. Jars of homegrown beans from the garden to the table, ready for the pantry. And every jar has a story. And you may notice that some of my jars look a little different, and I'll be sharing what those are in an upcoming video, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I'd love to have you part of my community. And here on Simply Serene, you'll always find recipes, creative inspiration, and the simple joys that make life more peaceful. So if you'd like more kitchen inspiration, be sure to check out my cookbooks linked below. And until next time, my friends, take care and happy canning.